have a fun question to start today off.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yep. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
What do the states Arkansas, Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky have in common?
I don't know. They all bleed blue.
I can tell you are the sports fan that you are. No, not all of those teams are blue, but good try.
Probably just one.
There's
probably just
well,
blue.
it depends if you count like Navy. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's beside the point. No, actually, out of all 50 states, there are 4 that are called dower states.
Dower states.
Yeah.
Michigan surprised me.
Me too. I can see Kentucky and Arkansas. Ohio and Michigan.
Ohio.
I don't know that I could.
I could. But Michigan?
I just figured it was a southern thing,
I did
actually,
too.
which I don't know why.
It just, because dowry just sounds southern. Let's preface this by saying we are not attorneys. Always consult your attorney.
And I may not have the exact definition here, but being a dower state means that when you are married, that you automatically have an interest in any real estate property that your spouse owns, whether they owned it at the time of your marriage or they owned it before you got married, you suddenly automatically have an interest.
Right.
This has come up so many times. And why is that such a big deal for us to know?
Oh, well, several reasons, but because we're different than the other states. When you move here, like from California or New York, like that is not a thing.
No, and what we find is even if you're married at the time that you purchase, if like let's say the wife moved here first and purchased the home, her husband hadn't moved here yet, her name was the only one on the deed, her name was the only one on the mortgage, and let's say they came to Kentucky, stayed 2 years, decided to leave. Whenever they go to sell, they're like, oh, my husband's, he's not coming. Well, yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Oh, no, he's not on it. Doesn't matter. He is. And they don't understand that. And actually, most people in Kentucky don't really understand that.
Right.
How often do we have spouses not show up because they think they have nothing to do with it?
The old adage, 1 to buy, 2 to sell.
So if you think you're going to buy a property without your spouse knowing, and then you
oops.
try to sell that,
oops,
they're going to know, or you're going to keep it till you die.
Yep.
I mean, that's just how that is. Also, like let's say you had a prenuptial agreement before the marriage and you bought property, or the spouse owned property, and you got divorced. Even though you had a prenuptial agreement that the spouse had no interest in that property, that spouse still has to sign the
off
deed
on it,
because they have a dower interest automatically.
Yeah.
It is strange, and it's what I tell everyone that is still single when they purchase.
It's a shock to people.
Yes.
It's a shock. I had a client who bought a house. A parent was a co-signer. The parent was married, so it was a all big family reunion at closing.
So when that happens, let us just run down who all has to come to closing. The person that was buying the house originally, their new spouse if they've been married, their parent,
yes,
their parents' spouse if they're married. So instead of having the 2 people that originally started, you have to organize four co-signers.
Yeah, it's a table full of people.
And also, too, some mortgages will make your spouse sign the mortgage anyway because Kentucky's a dower state. Even if they're not on there for credit or income, the bank still wants them to sign because they inherently have an interest in the property.
Right.
So that if something happens to the person that's on the loan, that spouse has to acknowledge that there is a mortgage and that they would take the steps to be responsible for it or something like that.
So how often have you had someone to come to you to sell a property and they've been married, but they've told you they weren't married? Have you ever had that happen?
Actually, I don't think so. I don't want to lie. I mean, I'm
sure you have.
Well, or
I've had people to come to me to buy a house and they were married.
I've had that more often, but a lot of times it's because they're getting divorced.
Yeah.
But this is another important point in dower. So if you want to buy a house, you're getting divorced, you want to buy a house so you can move out of the house.
We just talked about this the other day.
I know we did, because this comes up all the time.
All the time.
So if you're getting divorced and you need to buy a house to move into to get out of the one that you share with your spouse, if you buy a home before that divorce is final, your spouse will have an interest in that house, even if you're legally separated. It does not matter. So I've seen it happen both ways, where the people had to wait until the divorce is final. But I've also seen where the couple that were splitting up got along fine.
Right.
he was there to sign, or she signed the quitclaim
Quitclaim
deed
deed to
there.
release, right?
And, we signed the deed and the quitclaim to release their entitlement to it at the same time. It was all fine.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of divorces do not.
Not everything ends with a happy ending.
No, no, it does not.
So if you're in one of those sticky situations, just wait till it's finalized.
Yeah, and if you think about, if you remember, whenever people used to get married, the wife's family had to give a dowry to
right.
the husband. So that's where the term dower comes from.
Yeah.
Something you get automatically when you get married. This is so important on so many different levels, but when you deal with what we do every day.
Oh, it's so important.
When you're down to the last minute, you've got to get it closed before something happens and the spouse doesn't show up. And I tell them all from day one when they go to sell, you do understand that your spouse will have to come. Oh, he's not on the loan.
It doesn't
he still
matter.
has to come. Well,
Yep.
he didn't at my last one. Well, you're in Kentucky now.
Right, right.
Even if you lived in New York and you bought in Kentucky, where that property is at is where that falls into place. So even if you were buying a home in Kentucky as a second home, but you and your spouse resided in New York, that they still have to sign.
Right.
Yes. I mean, we do a lot of things by overnight and remote signings and things like that. So it's not like they have to travel here. But if your property is in Kentucky, then your spouse will have to sign to sell it.
Correct.
All day long.
All day long.
Does not change.
Nope.
No exceptions there.
No.
So just remember that. And also, if you are not married and you are buying a home, just remember too that, like I said, when you get married, it's
right.
not just your house. That would be your life lesson for today. Well,
points to take away from this.
Yes, things you need to know are: if we tell you your spouse has to come to closing,
just listen.
Just bring them, please.
Just listen to us.
Don't argue.
We're not saying it for funsies.
No. So make sure that if you have a spouse, they do come to closing, or we make arrangements to sign them ahead of time.
Right. You don't have to be in the same room.
Sometimes it's better not to be.
Sometimes it's better not to be. Exactly.
Yes. But that is the biggest thing. Just remember when you're selling land in Kentucky that it does matter.
Yep.
Regardless.
And go back to takes one to buy
and two to sell. All day long, every day. And if we tell you to come to closing and you still do not believe us, call the attorneys that are requiring you to be there.
And many times the attorney/title company will also email and be like, I need to know who they're married, spouse's name, all that stuff. So they do their part to make sure everybody's there, and then we also have to do our part.
Okay, so I also just had this situation, and I think it's noteworthy to bring up. The husband had purchased the property while he was married. The wife's name was not mentioned on the deed. She was not mentioned on the mortgage. And
wait, go back. He bought it while he was married?
Yeah, he was married, and it says he was married on the deed, but it never mentions her by name.
Okay.
She didn't sign any mortgage, and it was about to be foreclosed on, to be honest. And we got a buyer. We were ready to sell. And this has been a few years since they separated. He has since gotten remarried.
Oh, no.
So not only did his ex-wife have to sign, he had to sign, but his new wife had to sign as well.
And sometimes that just makes for a very, very, very tense closing.
My first year in real estate, I had that happen.
Even if everybody's not there, you're going to see documents and you're going to see signatures.
Oh, and listen, the one, okay, remember I was like 24 maybe at this time, and it was maybe like the first few houses I'd ever sold, and they were selling their home that they had raised their children in together, and she walks in with her husband all happy jack, and then here comes the ex-husband mad that the husband's there.
Yes.
And normally in that situation, this one I'm talking about that just happened, that had been years. They had both moved on. They were fine.
Right.
But this other one was still really new.
Yeah, still fresh. And that husband, I mean, he's like, that it? I'm gone. And he just stormed out, because the new husband was there. So, and that is definitely a situation where if we have separate rooms, we'll just sign you separate. Yes.
Like there's no reason.
No,
but
not at all.
Again, when we say it's important for you to know this, you just need to understand what all this means, even though it seems like a very simple concept. When it comes to real life, real situations, it gets real.
It gets real.
It gets real quick.
Fast.
Yes, it does.
I will ask, is it okay for your ex to be at closing, or do you want to do it at a different time? Like, I will ask that, you know? I don't want any extra tension or
Oh,
anything like that. I don't want somebody to slam a pen on the table and be like,
yeah.
"Forget this,"
Or refuse to
or
sign.
refuse to sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always take other people's feelings into consideration, but sometimes you schedule these closings and you schedule, like, somebody show up at 10, somebody show up at 10:30, somebody show up at 11, and they all get there at the same time.
Yep. And that can be fun.
And you're like, "You're not due here for another 30 minutes."
by the time we get to the end of a transaction, we know everybody. We're
Right.
like, hey, listen,
Right.
what's better for you?
Mhm.
What do you want to do here?
Mhm.
I can meet them. And most of the time, it's okay.
Most of the time.
But that year one, it was not. And
Way
I'm
to
over
break
there.
you in.
I know. And I'm over there like watching like it's a tennis match. Like, oh, what's gonna happen? Like, I didn't know what to do because I didn't have my amazing recovery
Yeah.
skills at that
Amazing
moment
recovery
of
skills.
what to do or my fine line of okay, so this is how we're gonna fix it. I just sat back and watched like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
One time I had a buyer to tell me that they were divorced. I didn't think to ask if it was final.
That's important.
It is important. They were like, "I'm divorced." I'm like, great. We go through this entire process. And of course, we don't like pull marital status or divorce decrees or anything like
Well,
that.
you do sometimes.
We do sometimes, but at that point, I did not. But most of the time, that's the title company.
Right.
And the title company did their due diligence, but I wasn't looped in that they were still legally married. They were separated, but there was no filing of the divorce. So we go to closing, and they're questioning where the spouse is. And I thought they were joking. They were not joking. Yeah,
Oh,
the
that's
spouse
funny.
didn't show up. So there was no closing that day.
Oh, did it get closed?
Eventually. It took several days and several phone calls to the spouse, and thankfully the title company explained, like, you still have to sign.
They're like, why do you need my signature?
Mhm.
Like, I don't want any part of that. It's unfortunate. It is required.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I guess I would say it's kind of neat that we have it, but I don't really know that that's neat. It's nothing we've ever not had. This is how
Right.
it's always
That's just how
been
it's
for
always
us.
been.
Hopefully you guys have learned something today. And if you have questions about it, again, we're not attorneys, but we can refer you to an attorney who will. So anyway, until next time,
No one asked.
but we're saying it anyway. Well, we said what we said.
We'll do it again next time. No one asked.